Shifting our focus now to the big story coming in from Tamil Nadu. It's a setback for the DMK government in Tamil Nadu. In the Ayodhya Mandapam case, the High Court was hearing the case after the state government had taken over the Ayodhya Mandapam. It's a setback coming in from the High Court. Shilpa Nair live with us. Shilpa, this was on expected lines because the High Court had already set aside the 2013 order, but this comes as a massive embarrassment for the DMK government.
Well, it is a setback not just for the DMK government but also for the previous AIDMK government, because it was a previous AIDMK government in 2013 that had issued this particular order appointing a fit person to administer the Ayodhya Mandapam in Chennai. The matter was challenged in court by the Ram Samaj, which is managing the affairs of the Ayodhya Mandapam, and the court had given an interim stay on the 2013 order of the HR&CE department for over 8 years, and it was only in March that the Madras High Court had vacated that particular stay, and which allowed the HR&CE department to then take over the administration of the temple, which was originally a community hall. Now, it was based on the Madras High Court, orders that the DMK government had proceeded, and they carried out the takeover process, which of course met with stiff resistance from the BJP, from other right-wing groups. There was a protest that was staged outside the Ayodhya Mandapam itself, and later, after the government's takeover, the Ram Samaj once again approached the Madras High Court, and in that particular appeal, the Madras High Court has now pronounced its order, saying that they are setting aside the 2013 order of the HR&CE department, appointing a fit person to administer the Ayodhya Mandapam, and they have asked the HR&CE department to give the control back to the Ram Samaj, and they've given the HR&CE department the liberty to conduct a fresh inquiry. Now, this entire matter dates back to 2013 when a petitioner, when a complainant named M.V. Ravani, he is a live member of the Ram Samaj. He had complained against the other members of the Samaj, saying that there is large-scale financial irregularities and mismanagement that is taking place. In fact, the allegations that he had leveled were extremely serious in nature, saying that there is absolutely no book of accounts regarding the public money that is being offered, the gold and silver that is being offered. And based on the complaint, the HR&CE department had conducted an inquiry, and they found out that pujas are being performed on a daily basis. Public money is being used. They had installed idols inside the temple, and that is when the HR&CE department, of course, decided that they will appoint a fit person to administer this particular temple, even though it was originally a community hall. Now, the Ram Samaj had approached the court, and there was a stay, and after a long legal tussle, the stay was vacated in the month of March, and that is when the DMK government, of course, proceeded and they took over the Ayodhya Mandapam,
But
which
Shilpa,
was again
the issue had also taken political overtone. Stay with us, Shilpa. We also have R. Rajagopalan, senior journalist on the broadcast with us. Mr. Rajagopalan, the state government had alleged mismanagement, irregularities as well, but now the Madras High Court stepping in, and also it's a setback for the DMK government as it has been taken over the Ayodhya Mandapam.
It is a setback to DMK government, though the petitioner Ramani, who said irregularities, but that was set aside. My understanding is, since the local councillor from where that Mandapam is located, it is in West Mambalam in Tamil Nadu, that West Mambalam elected a BJP councillor. Unable to stomach that type of victory of BJP, DMK intentionally created an atmosphere to ensure that the Mandapam management is taken over by the Hindu Religious Endowment Board. But the successful argument of the Mandapam lawyers, including Mr. K. Parasaran, the aged old Parasaran who appeared on behalf of Mandapam, argued very well, and the court vacated this stay. My understanding is it is a major setback to DMK, and I am very sure they may approach Supreme Court so that they are not given a type of bad image in the minds of public. But it is a religious matter. I know that it is going to create a political storm in Tamil Nadu. The Tamil Nadu government, which has been anti-DMK, as being alleged by BJP always, anti-Hinduism, anti-Hindutva, that is why it is taking a political turn. Now the High Court has given a verdict. It's a great victory for Hindu followers, especially this Mandapam, especially for BJP supporters. And apart from that, during the recently concluded Panchayat civic elections, BJP has done extremely well and panned Tamil Nadu. They were polled with 6 to 7% votes. That created a rattle among the DMK cadres. That is why DMK intentionally created a furore by sending few officers of Hindu Religious Endowment Board to take over the Mandapam. That has been stalled. It is a major setback to DMK government.
That's right. Mr. Rajagopalan, the BJP has also been calling the Stalin government anti-Hindu and saying that this is going to be a big embarrassment for the DMK. But for the AIDMK to take a stand on it, it's going to be difficult because the takeover started during the AIDMK rule.
So this is also political, but the victory for Hindu followers, especially after Lavanya case, after Nagarkovil, the conversions, in Tamil Nadu, madam, it's a story that every district has one communal problem or conversion. That is why Tamil Nadu, a change is coming up. My understanding is the Dravidian movement is slowly fading away and Hindutva is showing its emergence.
Okay, all right. Mr. Rajagopalan, thank you for joining us with your insights on that. Shilpa, coming back to you, the argument that was made was that the Ayodhya Mandapam was being mismanaged. And this is an issue that has been going on in courts for several years. Now, as the High Court hands it back to the Ram Samaj, has the High Court made any observations? Is it going back to the Ram Samaj despite the allegations of mismanagement?
Pratibha, what we're given to understand is that, the Madras High Court, of course, has asked Ram Samaj to take over the property from the HR&CE department, but the court has also asked the Ram Samaj to maintain book of accounts. The complaints that were leveled against Ram Samaj were extremely serious in nature because M.V. Ramani, he is a life member of the Ram Samaj, and he was the one who made multiple complaints to the HR&CE department, one saying that the book of accounts were not maintained properly. There was suspected tax evasion. He says the money that was offered during special days, special puja days, the gold, the silver, all of that which was offered by public to the temple, there is absolutely no book of accounts, there is no ledger. And these were the complaints that M.V. Ramani had raised. And the HR&CE department, of course, initiated a probe. When they inspected the Ayodhya Mandapam, they figured out that idols were installed, pujas were being performed twice a day, public were offering money and other, gold, silver and other jewelry in the hundi that was placed. So they say this makes it a temple which the HR&CE government, HR&CE department can administer, and they decided in view of the allegations and the complaints, they decided that they will appoint a fit person to administer the Ayodhya Mandapam.
Okay, now, Shilpa, stay with us. We have activist Rahul Ishwar on the phone line with us. Mr. Rahul Ishwar, how do you look at this development that has taken place with Ram Samaj getting back the control of the Ayodhya Mandapam?
This is very happy news. This is a protection of all the believers. Please remember, whether our temples or samajams or their own private space has always been conquered, if I can use, or invaded by the secular government for their own ulterior motives. This is a victory, and this will give momentum and boost and energy to similar movements all over India where devotee spaces are being conquered by the secular government in guise of their own ulterior motives. So this is a very welcome verdict, and I hope this particular Ayodhya Mandapam and similar spaces which are in debate, where it will be a precedent and it will give energy to this, because at the end of the day, these are all built by believers and not secular government. Secular government should keep an arm's length from such spaces of devotion, religion, worship and spirituality.
Okay, stay with us, Rahul Ishwar. We have America Narayanan from the Congress party as well. Mr. Narayanan, would you see that as a setback for your alliance partner, the DMK government?
Well, I don't know whether it's a setback or not, but my previous commentator said that it is a setback for the secular government. I think now they're trying to communalize the issue. If there is a thing that the High Court has said, that has to be followed. But as far as the administration of the temple, whether it should be done by the individuals or by the government, that can be debated, I think, and oversee the temples is my opinion, because...
Okay, is that the same for all religious institutions? Is that your opinion for all the religious institutions or just temples?
I am aware that Waqf Board is managed by the government appointees as much as HR&CE. Number one, I had recently toured, I am a believer, I have recently toured 30 Divya Desams in Choranad near Tanjore. I can tell you that there are privately managed temples which are also not kept well. And there are HR&CE temples which are better. It doesn't mean one or the other. When the government manages a temple, we are able to question it better. We need to do, if anybody is saying HR&CE is not managing things well, I will say yes. But to give it to the private people is throwing the baby with the bathwater.
Okay, so your government is of the view that those who are part of the temple are not capable enough to run the temple. It needs government intervention.
See, that we don't necessarily have to agree that those people who are part of the temple are capable of running the temple well. In some cases they do. In most cases they don't have the resources or the management talent, and they do it as a part-time. And I can show you instances of Divya Desam temple which are run by private individuals, where the archakars, the people who perform pujas, are not coming there on time, and people have been waiting for...
Okay, the question, Mr. Narayanan, is of the disparity in rules. You have one set of rules for the temples and another set of rules for the religious institutions. That's something that has been raised time and again.
I think we should manage everything properly. If somebody asks a question, I will agree to that. I don't think there should be one rule for one religion and other rule for other. But I am aware that Waqf Board again is managed by the government appointees. Now the CSI Church during the British Raj, because they were Christians, have not done that. I think people can look at that. Now, but that doesn't make trying to bring the temple back to the private hands, I don't think it's a good idea. In spite of the fact I'm a true believer and I try and follow as much as possible my religious thing.
Stay with us, Mr. Narayanan. Mr. Rahul Ishwar, how do you respond to that? As far as temples are concerned, we need a state intervention to run the temples.
Can I humbly point out one thing? Is there even one church in whole of India which is managed by government or which is managed by any secular institution? Why only single out temples? Because many politicians wanted their own control, and as he rightly pointed out, in the British Raj had some similar systems for CSI, and British Raj constituted this Devasam systems for Hindus because they wanted to weaken Hindus from within. How many Hindu temples are controlled by government, including Shabarimala? Everything is controlled by the government. But how many churches are controlled by the government? How many inside mosque affairs that the secular government meddles in? So Hindus are being sidelined, Hindus are being singled out. Why? Because all the other minority communities have their own rights, but Hindu community does not have right to run our own affairs. Is it not hypocrisy? Is it not double standard? And various Supreme Court verdicts rightly point out, if there is some malpractice or maladministration or misadministration, you can address that. But that doesn't mean you can intervene and take it. At a point of time, we are privatizing Air India. Government is trying to take over temples. What kind of an irony is this? We are trying to give back Air India to Tata so that it runs smoothly. When privatization is happening in that, many people are asking for making temples a public property. See, please remember, temples are open for all. Temples are for public. But it is managed by a trust. It is managed by believers. And at the end of it, please remember Supreme Court verdict that temple is not a public place, but temple is a private home of the deity and the devotees. This is the legal point. So temple is not a public place like a road or like a public garden, whereas the temple belongs to the deity, who is a legal entity under Indian law, who is a judicial entity, a legal entity who can do a lot of transactions, and it belongs to the devotees. So devotees have won. I hope this momentum will get more impetus because of the present verdict. At the end of the day, it is our Article 25, our fundamental right, and Article 26, right to faith and right to run our faith institutions according to the desires and spirituality of our own people that really matters. So please, I hope government won't intervene, and there is not even one single church in India which has any kind of interference from the state government. Please prove me otherwise.
Mr. Narayanan, the High Court has now rejected this takeover by the DMK government. The BJP rule states are also now moving towards freedom of temples. Would you implore your government as well to chart that path?
Are you talking to me?
Yes.
Okay. First thing is, I think we should not communalize the issue. Second thing is that people
No, but that's precisely the point, to not communalize it. Let all the religions...
I'm answering that.
Yes.
HR&CE non-believers cannot be an official or do anything in HR&CE as per the law. We need to make sure that HR&CE functions effectively. We need to question them. If a private people are doing anything wrong, I cannot even question that. And hence, I think there needs to be a government intervention and HR&CE right. Now, if CSI needs to be brought in, let them do that. I don't object to that. Why not? Why has it not the Modi government, which has talked about, same thing? Why didn't they bring it under?
It is now being brought in the BJP rule states. Mr. Rahul Ishwar as well as Mr. Narayanan, thank you so much for joining us on the broadcast. The views differ on it, but the Madras High Court setting aside the 2013 order, which means it has rejected the DMK government's takeover of the Ayodhya Mandapam. This remains our focus story. Shilpa is also with us. Shilpa, setback for the DMK aside, now it looks like a resurgence of hope for the freedom of the other temples. In this case, of course, the argument that was made is that this is a public temple and that's the reason why the HR&CE can take over.
Well, that's right. In fact, that was the primary argument that the HR&CE department had put forward, that it is, even though Ayodhya Mandapam was originally a community hall, it was functioning as a public temple because idols were installed. A separate temple was built for Hanuman inside the premises. Pujas were being offered twice a day. Hundi was placed where people, the public, were offering money, gold, silver and other jewelry. So out and out, the HR&CE department says it was functioning like any other temple in the state, and therefore the HR&CE department has the right to take over the temple, especially in light of the allegations of financial mismanagement by the Ram Samaj, which was managing the affairs of Ayodhya Mandapam. Now that is the reason why a detailed inquiry took place. The HR&CE department had sought reply from the Ram Samaj regarding these allegations as well, and the HR&CE department in its order says the reply from the Ram Samaj was not satisfactory in nature, and in view of the allegations that have been levelled and the complaints that have been levelled by M.V. Ramani, who was a life member of the Ram Samaj, and also based on the inspection that the HR&CE department conducted, they decided to appoint a fit person in 2013 to administer the Ayodhya Mandapam.
Right.
And
right,
in this case, of course, then
the argument that was made, Shilpa, as we've been discussing, is that the idols were not consecrated at the temple as per the Agama Shastra. We'll continue tracking these developments, but for now, it's a victory for those who are wanting the freedom of the temple. Time for a short break now. We'll be right back.